Welcome back, YouTube. So today we're going to be covering everything Devastation Evoker for the brand new expansion, The War Within, for Season 1. We're going to be covering gear, talents, rotation, a little bit of a clipping slash chaining overview that's updated with the new Mass Disintegrate, and so much more. So to begin, we are going to be going over the gear, and the gearing is very simple. You just go ahead and you honor grind. Right now, Comp Stomp is out. If you go to player versus player, very, very easy to gear. But we are here in the new zone, Dornegal. And right over here in the foregrounds area, you will have your vendor right here. So you can grab all of the gear, everything that you're going to be needing. And then over here, you have your sockets, guys. So sockets aren't in the box anymore from the weekly. You just go over here and you buy it with what is this vicious bloodstone. You buy 2 of these and then you get 9,750 honor for your sockets. So a little bit of a grind, but not as bad as it used to be in the past. And then the rest of these are just patterns and all that good stuff. So a tip for grinding honor real quick is they actually have now something called Flask of Honor, which you can use to play BGs with. You get 15% increase on honor gains, which is nice. They also have one called Wrecking Ball, which I would have picked some up on the auction house right now, but it's not actually working. Which increases your damage after you get a kill, but then also increases the damage that you take. Alright, so with Devastation, as you know, nothing is really quite changed with the stat priorities. Forever and always, if you're ever deciding what you're going to take as far as gear is concerned, you always want to take whatever has the most intellect on it, and then follow that up with mastery, and then haste, and then you can mix in crit and verse. But I generally like to go at least for 30 verse, because anything past 30 verse is just going to be a negative DR in the stat return. And so when you go to the honor vendor, just buy everything that you possibly can that has verse mastery on it. And then if you can't find something that has verse mastery on it, just buy haste verse piece. You can get all the new enchants on the auction house. Right now I'm using Council's Intellect on my chest. I'm using speed enchants on my back and my wrist. There is currently no belt one like there was last expansion that I know of right now. At least there's none in the auction house. And then there's an intellect amp on your legs. And then I'm just using an older enchant because the ones that are out right now are way too expensive. And then I get mastery enchants on my rings. And then for the weapon, the new one, it's not Sophic anymore. It's called Authority of Radiant Power, which does a burst of damage and then increases your primary stat, which is what you want. Okay. So let's go over the talents. And there has been some changes to the trees, and we'll cover that right now. So I am running Scale Commander. I believe it's the best one. Flame Shaper to me is just completely and utterly useless. Even though it just got buffed today by 30% on Engulf, it's still useless to me. And I mean, I've tested, you know me, I've tested everything. This is my main. I've been maining Dragon since day 1 of the alpha. So, you know, if I tell you that's something bad, it's bad. But Scale Commander is going to be your choice. You'll see why in a little bit, but we'll go over it real quick. So Mass Disintegrate. So after you empower, your next Disintegrate will strike up to 3 targets and it'll cleave. And if there's no one else around to cleave it to, it'll do 50% increased damage to your primary target. Then you have 20% increased black spell damage right here. Bombardments, which is really nice. So after you Mass Disintegrate, it marks your target for the next 6 seconds, and then anybody who's attacking the target will have a chance to proc a drive-by by an NPC that just does a bunch of burst splash damage. Onslaught, which is amazing. Every time you get into combat, it gives you an immediate charge of burnout. So very useful. Melt Armor, this is really strong. Deep Breath causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from your bombardments and essence abilities for 20 seconds. So just a 20% amp on your damage. And then bombardments reduce the cooldown of deep breath by 1 second. So very good. Your deep breath playing this build, if you just perma cranking, you can get your deep breath down to like 45 seconds. Unrelenting Siege is just a passive buff to your damage while you're in combat, up to 50% on Azure Strike, Living Flame, and Disintegrate. Very nice. And then you have a choice note here, Hardened Scales or Menacing Presence. Just go ahead and lock in that Hardening Scales. An additional 10% damage reduction on your necessity scale. So 40% damage reduction on a 2 charges is extremely powerful. And then I like Extended Battle over Diverted Power because I've tried this and I've tested Diverted Power and it doesn't really seem to be giving as much essence as I would want it to for taking that talent. So just extending my bombardments on my target, which is reducing the cooldown on my deep breath, which is extending my damage buff on them, which is just way more useful to me. And then you have a choice now between Slipstream and Nimble Flyer. Just go ahead and lock in Slipstream every single time. Just having more hovers of cooldown after you deep breath, so very nice. And then the kicker right here, maneuverability. Deep breath can now be steered in your desired direction, and deep breath burns targets over 12 seconds. So in the past, we have had to, I've used the cursor macro with deep breath, but now you just press deep breath and you can steer it. And it's crazy. So I can hit everyone that I want to. And then I'm also playing recall, break ankles, and go back. So that's so huge. Let's see, on the left side, a couple of changes have gone down and they've moved some things around. So like you can notice right here, Source of Magic used to be here. So they've swapped some things here. And so we'll just go over it. So from top to bottom, I personally love recall. I know it really kind of sucks to take 2 points in innate magic just to get there. But to me, having it up so frequently and being able to um, break ankles and not be stuck when I deep breath into the backline on the enemy team is so very nice. This is really much the same, pretty much the same. If you're ever gonna play into sub rogues or something that can burst you down really, really hard, I would take Focus Life. But other than that, I'm just taking Fire Within. And then if you're playing into a Death Knight, I'd take Unravel. I mean, Unravel is okay, but only into Death Knights. I mean, it's still, in my opinion, needs a little bit of a buff. But if you're going to be team fighting, Oppressing Roar is just so very strong. And then I have tried a little bit of Spatial Paradox. This is new. Choice Note with Time Spiral, but for a 3-minute cooldown, to me, it's just not worth it. Having an extra hover off CD and also to give your teammates some really crucial abilities. Like, for example, if you're playing with a Resto Shaman, you give them Aura Mastery, which is like invaluable, and not everybody is going to realize when this is up. So even if you're like making the most clutch play of time with a Spatial Paradox at the best moment in all of the history of WoW, and no one's really going to see, oh, I have a Spatial Paradox, like, you know what I mean? But they're going to know because it's going to light up on their abilities when you press Time Spiral, because their movement ability or whatever it gives them lights up. Let's see, on the right side, nothing has actually changed too hard. They keep trying to revive this left side here, but the biggest change for us on the right side was that they made Titanic Wrath a 1-point node, so I can actually get Iridescence with Onyx Legacy, and I'm doing the most damage in the game right now. Some patch notes came out and just today, and they've even buffed Devastation damage again. They're just literally sleeping at the wheel, and it's going overlooked. And right now, Devastation in my mind is absolutely S tier. We're just blasting everyone. It's actually insane. But this is the build right here. Keys are Lay Waste, Onyx Legacy, Iridescence. I always love Arcane Vigor. I actually don't need Font of Magic anymore, and even if I was playing into a Druid, I don't even really take it, even if I'm taking Purge. Just because like this setup by itself is just doing everything I want it to do. I mean, I don't need to do anything else other than that. There have been no changes to our talents as far as under talents, but just to gloss over them really quickly. Chrono Loop, Pretty good. If you want to, catch people off guard, force a dispel, get when they're low, to get a major cooldown or even kill. I do like it, especially into like Holy Priests who like the Ray of Hope low, and then they put a bunch of healing into the Ray, and then they go up in health, and then they go back down because the Chrono Loop. Scouting Flame into anything that you want to be purging. Druids or even Pres Evokers. Time Stop is situational, but it can be good, into like specifically sub rogues or maybe even demon hunters, something that you just want to like, negate all of their damage. Or like a lot of the times you'll see the sub rogue go over and kidney your healer and then try to step to you and start doing damage on you, but you could just time stop at that moment, so he just gets absolutely rolled. Swoop Up is still a dead talent, don't even have a bind for it. It's 1.5 minute cooldown, it's really bad. Null Shroud I'm pretty much taking into everything nowadays. Except into mages, you don't need to take it because I'll just spell steal it. Crippling Forest actually not really getting that much value these days. Everybody has just a lot of mobility, and you're not really gonna be you know doing anybody harm with this talent. Really, it's maybe like a battlegrounds thing if you really wanted to like slow the flag carrier. Divide and Conquer is actually bugged right now. So even if I were to take it with Scale Commander on Devastation, you can see it doesn't even create a wall. It's just completely bugged. Don't take it. Dreamcatcher is okay. I'm not really finding this to be too valuable. And Dreamwalker's Embrace is also not good. I just don't find any value in it really ever. It's really hard to pull off, and it's not really worth it. But generally right here, Obsidian Metal is my go-to. 1000%. I'm taking this like 100% of the time. It's just so useful because like when I pop my cooldowns and I start blasting mass disintegrates, I just wall and they can't kick me, because if I get kicked on my mass disintegrate, like that's all my damage, right? So I don't want to get kicked on it. So when I pop my cooldowns, I'm just gonna wall just to guarantee it. All right, so that's it for the talents. So let's go over the rotation. And I know on dummies, mass disintegrate actually doesn't show, but I'll put in a clip real quick to showcase how disintegrate works, or mass disintegrate works. So every time that you use an empowered spell, you'll have mass disintegrate, which strikes up to 3 allies, but it doesn't really work on dummies. But as you can see, the bombardments are flying over there, and it actually does a lot of damage. All right, so for the rotation, we'll go over the burst rotation first. All right, so now all my cooldowns are up. I'm going to show you the burst rotation. I'm going to show you your opener. And a couple of things you have to keep in mind here is that, Devastation, you are an absolute powerhouse. You love to be cleaving everyone. You can do really good single target damage, but your spread cleave is just so very powerful. And so when you're going in, what I like to do is you want to hover first, because Deep Breath resets the cooldown on hover, so you just get that charge back immediately. So you're going to go in there, you're going to hover, Shroud up, Root, Pressing Roar, Deep Breath, whole team, recall back if you want to, Dragon Rage, hit the scales, Fire Breath, wall, like that. Okay, launch that Living Frame, Shattering Star, Eternity Surge, Laser, back-to-back disintegrates. Now let this one finish out fully, and then if you want to, you can swipe twice, but you can just laser disintegrates as well, but I like to do it with the first procs. Just keep lasering disintegrates, and then when my cooldowns come back up, Shattering Star cooldown. You can wall again if you really want to guarantee your cast. You just lasering disintegrates all the way to the end until you run out. And now as you can see, boom, Deep Breath is off cooldown again, so I can just hover again. Recall back. Fire Breath. Shattering Star, Eternity Surge, lasering, back-to-back disintegrates. Look at the bombardments clapping. And once that red one, this is a never-ending loop of consistent damage pressure. It's absolutely crazy. Blizzard's just overlooking this so hard, and my cooldowns are coming back up. My bombardments are clapping. It's like I'm doing ridiculous freaking damage Like, I'm almost doing 1,000,000 sustained damage. It's absolutely absurd. Like, Devastation in my mind is absolutely freaking S tier. Like, I just don't understand why it's this strong, but I honestly I don't care. It's just ridiculous. Like in Battlegrounds, I'm doing 3 times everyone's damage. In Solo Shuffle, I'm doing like twice everyone's damage. You know, and I'm playing against like good players doing like war games and stuff. But the consistent damage rotation is a lot of the same. All you're going to be doing is trying to get a fire path out on as many targets as possible. Shattering Star, off cooldown, Eternity Surge, Laser Disintegrates back to back. If you have 2 stacks of Mass Disintegrate, I'll talk about that right now, with chaining and all that good stuff. So it's hard to kind of show you since it doesn't quite work on dummies. So you're just gonna have to trust me when I tell you. When you Mass Disintegrate, or when you disintegrate, period, okay, it will register 4 points of damage. With this weak R, you can see on my cast bar here. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the tick marks, right? So when you Mass Disintegrate, right? See? For those 4 ticks, it will strike 3 targets and do increased damage, okay? But if you Mass Disintegrate and you try to go into the next one without a Mass Disintegrate, you'll lose out on that damage. So watch, I have 1 tick. So I'm actually only going to get 1, 2, 3 ticks. And then I started another cast of Disintegrate that didn't have it, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to finish out the cast so that you get the increased damage, you get the spread, right? The only time that you can do it back to back is when you have 2 stacks. Okay, so I'll show you right now. So I'm going to have 2 stacks of Mass Disintegrate. And then I'm actually going to just let the second one channel fully through. I will not go into the third Disintegrate. Okay? So I have 1 stack, now I have 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'll let it finish. Okay, I'll let it finish, and then I can start the next one. Because the next cast of Disintegrate won't have the amped Mass Disintegrate effect, the increased damage, the spread pressure. It won't have any of that. Okay. So if you only have 1 stack, let it channel fully through. And then if you have 2, you can do it back to back, but don't go into a third one. That's the rule. All right, gamers, thank you so much for checking out my Devastation guide for The War Within Season 1. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. If you have any additional questions and you want to catch me live, I am at twitch.tv/JD_Yadig, where I'm streaming the preseason stuff with, BGs, some war games, and all the good stuff. So if you want to go check me out there, you can do that. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.